Well, thank you so much for joining us, Unique and Eddie. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. As I said, we're still waiting for one more member to join, but I'm going to be filling in the meantime and moderating as well. So we, as a company in Dojima, we are more about interoperability, getting all chains together, making one ecosystem. But we would like to get all of your views on it as well. So when we look at challenges in the industry, the audience over here also would like to understand why are we doing what we are doing and why do chains come up and do what they do as well. So having said that, I'm going to start off with one interesting question. Any one of you are open to answer that. So how do we address the challenge of fragmented standards for interoperability protocols across various blockchains, considering that there are EVM chains, non-EVM chains? What are the net of challenges that you see when you interact with certain partners or certain clients for that matter? When they come to you and say that, hey, I'm doing something different altogether, but if you had a bridge or something of that nature, maybe we could work together. How do you address that?
Yeah, so the heart of the issue, I guess, is liquidity fragmentation, right? So it's that can be both on the same chain. It's just like a lot of competing dexes in one base layer, or it can even, as you mentioned, it can be from different chains. A lot of time, or I guess a lot of new developments are coming out. For example, like Polygon's AG layer, Dojima solution that was just described in the last presentation. Basically, these are all methods or different approaches to uniting that liquidity. Then the other part of your question was like, how do you actually solve for that? So, I mean, I can't go into detail on each specific one, not an expert, but at least, okay, I'll touch on Aglayer first and then what we do on Nibiru, which is a little bit different. So Aglayer is, right, using zero knowledge. So essentially that's like the security for their messaging protocol. So the cool thing there is you can integrate different L1s, L2s, whatever, into one unified layer and then have apps operate as if it's sharing all of the liquidity. So Nibiru has a protocol that's pretty similar. It's called Euclid protocol. And so essentially it does a virtual settlement layer with a shared state with Nibiru as the home. And essentially it enables you to take, like, let's say, multiple dexes that are on the same chain and combine them to operate as one dex, but also they can be on different chains. And it's an extension of IBC. So if you're familiar with inter-blockchain composability from the Cosmos ecosystem, that's a multi-chain messaging protocol that allows you to query and then also execute transactions on other chains. So Euclid basically made a big extension to that, their own messaging protocol as well, and allows you to combine liquidity from different chains. So one of their first products coming out is like Euclid Swap, which is essentially combining dexes and then eventually combining lending protocols.
Yeah, so for me, let me talk about some business perspective. So yeah, whenever you do some as a layer or do collaboration, you are looking for a good project. But in most of cases, they are building on another either layer 1 or another layer 2. So, but sometimes they get grant from that layer 1, layer 2, and they are kind of some exclusivity condition, or so it is very they want to migrate their assets. Some of their, not every asset 100%, but they want to migrate some of the asset. So that kind of legal condition, that is also challenging things. But another, of course, the most difficult part is technical part. So there's so many different layer 1, layer 2. So whenever we do some try to bring some new product, we should understand their technology, and there's some process of integration. All these things are resources. We used to spend our resources of our BD to review this technology, and our builders, our co-developers, they also should review all the things. I mean, this kind of process are very every time you need to things very quickly and to get the opportunity, but this kind of things make things collaborations very difficult. That's what is happening in business.
That's a nice take on it, Eddie, but don't you think exclusivity makes it very restrictive? And considering that many dApps who are accepting grants from certain chains or certain infrastructure projects would it not be limiting and become more centralized in a decentralized environment to be able to operate more freely? I'm just being the devil's advocate over here and throwing a question out there again, yeah, in addition to what we've just discussed. Exclusivity is one thing where people like it so that the TBL increases, the number of transactions increase, gas fees, and so on and so forth. That is part of our industry. But wouldn't that be very restrictive for a DApp to go out there and be able to explore more users? Because everyone has their favorites. Like how Unique very nicely said, Cosmos also does have a very unique approach on things where every DApp has a different chain on its own. So that is something which we also need to consider. Considering some of these aspects is where we have brought this on there.
I think like with respect to interoperability, the way we would actually like start seeing is like coalitions start forming and standardizations like going forward. One thing I would like to mention here is that like with respect to the RWA side of it, there's for the EVM side, there is like already 3643 organization which is being developed. And I think like those kind of organizations will start pushing it forward. That's one way. The second way is also more protocols like yourself start popping up, which actually create that standard from the security perspective and also the interoperability perspective to like bring in more applications, which can be like multi-chain from day one.
Cool. Now, with regard to so many interoperability providers coming across, like we are one of them as well, but we do a lot more. Now, let me put it this way. One gentleman from the audience asked me, are you guys a bridge? And what I told him was, an aeroplane can fly, a helicopter can fly, and so can a balloon. They all do it differently, right? So similarly, we do something very different. Nonetheless, coming back to the question at hand, with increasing innovation in multi-chain smart contracts, what are the most significant hurdles ensuring consistent execution across different chains? Because in case you have an aggregator, who comes on board and says that, hey, we'll get your chains on board and we'll make sure that everything gets transferred onto your respective chains. What are the kind of challenges that you generally face? So why we are asking this question is not only for insight for the audience, but for us as well. That helps us make a better product too.
Sure, I can take a guess. Probably the first one would just be if you're trying to integrate liquidity from two blockchains that don't use the same VM. So you don't know, like you have to build custom logic for, switching between those different environments. Maybe another one could be like token standards change. So in the EVM, you use ERC20 for everything, but that looks very different as you go to other L1s, which is called like coins on Comet BFT, coins on Sui, but then, a plethora of different names depending on which chain you're talking about. But yeah, it's a guess from my side.
So one of the challenges would be fragmented liquidity.
Oh, yeah, I touched on that earlier. But yeah, so of course you have, it's also not just connecting the chain, but then also on one chain, the liquidity is also fragmented across the different dexes and applications too. So figuring out how to combine that to almost like, I don't want to say aggregate, but like, yeah, almost not an aggregator, but, have that operate as one body and then treat that as one body on different chains is it's an accounting problem, but then getting it to, execute seamlessly in those different environments is a challenging engineering problem.
True. Navigating those waters are a bit difficult. Fair enough. Do you have any take on that as well?
Yeah, I think one aspect is governance. So like if there is any governance decision, so a certain chain changes a lot. Like it's sometimes there are huge difference and like hard forks happening and the really big changes are happening. But if your smart contract is deployed to multiple chains, but you can change things in your the chain where the governance change is happening, but you cannot change the contract in like other blockchain. So that makes like things like very, I don't know, like very challenging for like those who using already do something on the chain, and you cannot fix the change. So like, and also everything is changing like on different chains, and like we want to do something different, and there are a lot of like different contract doing same things are increasing. So if that kind of things happen, if for users, like it's like so much information. So like there's several options, even though there's some obligators, you shouldn't decide their same contract doing same thing, but for normal users, for like not developers, not like general persons, it's like really difficult situation.
I know it gets very challenging and a lot of duplication as well as a lot of fragmentation and confusion for the users at end. So that is where, aggregators can be a bane and a boon at the same time. You have people who come and say that, hey, we've got everything under one roof. We do that as well. But ultimately, it comes down to the user experience on how they are going to be viewing it and how simple it is for the end user or the developer to be able to develop on, on multiple chains, have their contract deployed on multiple chains simultaneously. Now, having said that, one more thing that is quite interesting these days is with regard to zero knowledge proofs. In your opinion, would you say that ZK proofs play and enhancing part in the security of cross-chain solutions, or is it something which is not really the fact? Because ZK proof is something which we all use in our tech. How strong do you think that would be? It's a very, very, very devil's advocate kind of a question, but please go for it. We all use it.
Yeah, so for me, GK proof is like through GK proof you can avoid like validators, like if using bridge, if GK knowledge is there, you don't need validators. Like actually, like many accident comes from validators, especially bridge, and sometimes the operator of bridge, they control the like validator and they pick up the transaction. That's like what is happening in many like actually small chains. So, and especially the like bridges are limited, but if GK is there, you can avoid that kind of situations.
Speeds up the process.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm just thinking, speed versus authenticity and security.
Definitely agree with a lot of what was said on it. I think like zero knowledge is in some sense here, it's a pathway toward fully decentralizing the stack. But it's a lot slower, right? The ZK zero knowledge proofs are, the time to finality, it's essentially the trade-off of, for that decentralization, what you lose is the ability to do it really fast, right? Because a lot of the other stacks for, either a virtual settlement layer or a messaging protocol run fast because they're centralized or there's like a sequencer or there's some, process that's essentially just listening to both chains and then publishing it in a like some semi-decentralized manner. ZKPs, essentially you lose speed, but you gain decentralization. And then maybe that allows you to scale it to a higher number of chains.
Fantastic. That's what I was thinking as well. Because if you're going to avoid GK proofs, you challenge the purpose of decentralization in a big way. Considering to get faster finality, people do look at centralizing a certain process with regard to validators. However, thank you. Wiz, do you have anything to add on to that, please?
Yeah, I'd actually like plug in the previous question as well to this, because like the way I'm actually like, mine is a little bit of an alternative take to it, because I was working with a VC earlier. So for any kind of an application out there, when we are looking at it from a multi-chain perspective as well, the way I see it when you're running when you're a founder or a VC out there, is that why don't you use the best tech which a chain has to offer to amplify your growth as well, right? Like for example, at Bearer Chain, we have something called as proof of liquidity, which can incentivize any kind of user action out there which the project technically wants. So you can use that as an economic base with Parachain. If you want faster execution at some point of time, which is non-EVM, you can go to like Sui, Move, or anything and build the user-centric side there for interactions. You can take the yield, which is primarily having on Parachain, and pass it back to your users out there. Now, if you want like a gaming arm in your company which is going on, you can figure out a chain which is out there. It can be Beam, it can be anyone out there, which is more game-centric, where the users are residing. At the end of the day, the way I see this evolving going forward is just the way MNCs were evolving as well, right? I will primarily use the tech which is best suited for it, across it, and for the user, it does not really matter, because for him, this application is giving him a single unified experience at the very core of it.
Absolutely. Well, there was one more question that I was going to ask, but I think you've already answered that. I'll just say the question out loud. What are the best practices for ensuring that multi-chain DeFi applications remain both secure and composable across different ecosystems? I believe all three of you have already answered that question introspect while we were discussing other things. And I do agree with all three of you on that as well, that yes, there will be an amalgamation of sorts of technology rather than people going to choose multiple different chains together. They might be launching on stacks, or the chains might be amalgamating. We don't know. We just have to wait and watch. What is more viable in the near future? It's not only about the operational part of things, but it's also the commercial element of things as well, which will play a big role in the near future. That's my take on it. I hope I've got that right. Let's see. Yes, please.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to add in this is that like since we have seen AI agents actually like take front and center right now, you will also start seeing that like the chain side of the business is actually starting to go from B2C to actually B2B more, right? Because your end user to a certain extent really does not care.
True.
Right? Retail is there right now for certain use cases, but to them, unless you provide them the best experience out there, the businesses are the one who are actually going to make these choices as well, right? So the way we're actually going to see is that it might be in the near future, in the next couple of years, that there is a company which is actually providing services like you folks, where if there is an instant requirement for a particular smart contract to be deployed to solve a particular problem, you'll be able to just put it in a prompt with respect to AI agents, and that will basically solve everything for you as well.
That's exactly what we do. That made a lot of sense. Thank you. That was absolutely spot on. When you're looking in the future, definitely we will be looking at more automation when you're looking at agents coming on board rather than humans doing all the work. So when you're looking at AI, it's again an amalgamation of two different technologies. You have RPA and you have a logic added to it, which will make AI function better. Now, people say that AI is taking people's work away. That's not the case. It's the people that actually know how to use AI to the most advantage are the ones who are going to be the winners here. And when you're looking at blockchain technology with agents being able to work their way into validating, into making sure the contracts are automated, making sure the transactions happen on time, due diligence, that will effectively increase the efficiency. Is that right? So that is something which we will be looking at in the near future. Right now, we can't say. Most of it is speculation, but it's speculation in the right direction. It is something which is eventually an inevitability. I hope I've got that as well. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. It's really nice to have you. And those were some very interesting discussions. I don't know about the rest, but I did learn a few things. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.